Well, fall is in the air, and I thought it would be fun to put some pumpkins out around the dollhouse. So stay tuned and see what we started with and how we got to this point. It's a really fun and easy project. Alright, so I was at Dollar Tree the other day and I picked up these pumpkins and I thought they look like a really good size for the dollhouse. But the color is atrocious, quite frankly, and I need to fix that. They also had these in a cream color, but they had more of the orange ones, and I thought the orange ones would be more fun to paint and fix and make them look better. So there are 6 of them for $1.25, so that's really inexpensive. And they must be foam because they're very light. They've got these wires on the bottom to wire them onto things, which we are going to take off because we don't need that. We are going to put a handle on them, however. So I'm only going to do one on camera, and then I'll do the rest off camera. But what I'm going to do, I've got toothpicks here. I'm going to put a toothpick in place where that wire was. This will give me a nice stable handle. And I've got my little block that I can put them in while they're drying. So we're going to start. This does come out, but I'm going to leave it in. First thing I want to do, this one has some rough spots on it. And that's okay. I think what we'll do is we'll emphasize those when we finish the pumpkin, because pumpkins aren't perfect in real life. So we're going to start by doing a base coat. I'm going to paint the orange part of the pumpkin with this. This is Anita's in terracotta. I'm going to start with that as a base coat. It's a good color for something like this. And they should just paint. I haven't even wiped these down. I don't think they'll need it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish painting this. When I get this part finished, I'm going to cover the stem in a light yellow because I couldn't find my white today. I'm going to use yellow. I just want to kind of lighten up that stem so when I paint green on it, it will look nicer. So I'm going to paint all of these with a base coat of those 2 colors. When they are completely dry, I'll come back and we will start making these look more real. So I'll see you then. All right, so here's what this looks like with that coat of paint on it. And I didn't even bother to put a really thorough coat on because we're going to sponge paint over it, or kind of paint over that. But first I've got some woodsy smoke. This is a nice neutral brown. It's not very dark. It's just a really soft brown. And that's kind of what I want here. Now on every one of these little ridges, and I'm not going to do them all on camera. Don't worry. We're going to come down, and I've got a really thin brush. And then I'm going to take a makeup sponge. And I'm going to soften those edges. And if you wipe away too much with that, go back and do it again. In fact, sometimes what I do is I go around the whole pumpkin. This way the paint has time to sit just a little bit. And we're only using just a little bit. The idea here is we are working definitely in layers. All right, take that sponge. I've got paint all over myself because I've been playing around with this for a bit. And don't forget the top, although we are going to work on the top separately too. But this is our first step. We're adding some depth. We're dirtying up our pumpkin and just getting it just a little bit more not perfect. Getting it to be a little bit just more real looking. Take off that fake bright paint, get away from that, and just start getting this dirtied up a bit, basically, and emphasize the little segments. So I'm going to do this with the rest of these that I haven't done yet, and then this needs to dry before we go to the next step. So when this is dry, I'll come back and we'll add some color to the surface of the pumpkin. All right, so we've got our pumpkin painted. The brown streaks have dried, and now we're ready to add some nice color to this. Make it look more realistic than it did when it came out of the package. For that, I have 3 colors of orange paint. I have the same terracotta that we just used. We're going to use some of that. And we won't need much. Even doing all 6 of the ones that came in that package, it's only going to take just a little bit of paint. And then I've got, well, let's just do this one next because that's the more wild one. We have buttered yam. Both of those are Anita's. We're just going to put a small amount of that one on there. And Folk Art Vivid Orange. We're going to put some of this on here. I'm going to use a little more of that. Working a small area of the pumpkin at a time. Oh, and we also need a couple of things. We need another one of these makeup sponges and a very small paintbrush. And we're going to kind of dab, kind of dot. And it's okay. I put these a little closer together. I want that a little closer. I don't know why I put it quite that far apart. I don't want it to mix in, but I want to have it close enough so that when I am dotting for paint, I can get all 3 colors. Where was I? And I use more of the darker color at the bottom and more of the brighter colors towards the top. And I'm only applying on the bump out part. Go back and forth with your paintbrush. It doesn't matter if they mix. We're going to mix them here in a minute. Take your makeup sponge, and start I like to work on about 2 bumps at a time. That seems to be about the right amount. And depending on how you're going to display them, you may or may not need to do the bottoms very much. A little more bright orange. And after this dries, you can always come back and dab on a little more of any color you feel needs more. And you just proceed around the pumpkin in that manner. And the colors that you use don't have to be the exact same colors that I'm using. Use what you've got in your paint stash. Use something similar, but whatever you've got. And this dotting method, I picked this up on a video. I was looking at how people were painting full-size fake pumpkins to make them look more realistic. And this one gal that, at least one, maybe 2 that I watched, were using this dotting method. I had to adapt it to use it for what we're doing by simplifying the number of colors and what I'm using to blend it with. But by dotting and blending, you get a really good look without a lot of work. So I'll just finish off these 2 bumps, and then I'm going to go turn the camera off, and I'm going to finish these up off camera When this paint is completely dry, and I know I'm happy with it, then I'll come back and we'll work on the stems. So I'll see you when this is dry. All right, all 6 of these are painted and dried, and it doesn't take very long to dry because the paint is so thin by the time you use that sponge to kind of blend it. It's just a very light, almost like a glaze coat. So now let's work on these stems. They already look better than they did when they were really dark. I've worked on one, kind of got the coloring down off camera with one of these. So I've got another really tiny brush. I've got the same brown that we use to kind of dirty up our pumpkins and give that shape under our glaze coat. Just a drop. The same pale yellow that we base coated the stems with. Now you could use a cream or a pale yellow. I like this color. A straw color would work. Whatever you've got that's in that really pale creamy color. And then I've got Ceramcoat Leaf Green. And again, we are going to dot and then dab with the sponge. And this time, we're going to use this narrow end. So let's grab a pumpkin. Make sure your fingers are clean before you grab hold of that pumpkin. You've done all that time kind of getting that color blended the way you wanted it. So don't stick a finger on there that's got paint on it of a different color and ruin it. Yeah, be very careful down on that area where the stem attaches to the pumpkin. And I suppose we could take these out and put them, and paint them and then put them back in. But I'm always afraid of removing these that I'll damage the pumpkin, because even pulling that wire off, a couple of them, I pulled a chunk of foam off the bottom. It kind of covered up on the bottom. I was able to kind of disguise it with paint. But on the top, I wouldn't be able to do that. It would just ruin it. All right, so I've got that pretty much covered. Now, being careful, again, to stay off of the pumpkin itself. Am I staying under camera? Kind of, sort of. I want a little more of the brown and the cream. And you can vary your tones on your stems from pumpkin to pumpkin to give them a little more individuality. So there we have, that's that one. This one, I put a little more green on when I did that one. So maybe that one was picked more recently. So I'm going to finish up these stems on these pumpkins. When they're all dry, I'll come back and we'll look at our finished pumpkin. So I'll see you then. All right, I've removed the toothpicks that were acting as handles on our pumpkins, and I love how these have turned out. They look so much more realistic. They're going to look wonderful whether you're putting them on the front porch of the dollhouse, in the kitchen, in a miniature farmer's market scene, whatever. They just look so much better than they did in that super bright orange, and it was a lot of fun to do. I love playing with paint and really getting a lot of depth by using different painting techniques. Be sure and check the blog post. I've got some photos. I took photos, the close-ups of each step, so hopefully those turned out well, so you can really get a look at what I did on each step. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure and hit the like button. What kinds of projects would you like to see in future videos? If you enjoy my content and you haven't subscribed, I encourage you. Hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very, very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.